سلام تخطاتلتنا channel كمي كان يخوم كمي تخونو سنة كتكوننا وترمنيو تيو أبزك النيات زي زكاية زلو بدرجة أفريقيا كاب هاجر ناب هاجر كاب حزبي ناب حزبي الناس سقريب تسفانا يلوتي ننوبي حوان حزب أفريقيا زدوليو زنبري اتهم زقلقلوو زنبرون زمرحوو زنبرو مراحتن نتدليتاتون بحقناتون قوسيوم بفلاي دماب قلقلي نتهم ناي قدم قزاءتهم نتهم قدم زيشفشفوا من زمزمزوا من زنبرو نعتاتهم أمس سايد وفيرم زنبرو مراحتي كم معلتنا معلتي ناتو بنقري خدلهم أبزوان زي إذا أب جابون ويا بنيجر زكازلو زي كونس من ياتانيكس كم خد كون انتاي تنزح حيل زهبو خزلو قال مراحتي دما انت عين سقمتي وزلو زنجر كيمتهم أبزا فيديو زيا بملو كن رينا زتري وزلهم كارتاب كدميهم كساب حجي منقستات ويكاتو مراحتي بما فنكلا منقست ويبعلوا منقست اليوم زلو هاجراتنا نرد لنا كم مبراغ نمعراب كيدلو سترا يدي كونس ابتمع كلاي حجوم بخالاي لاين كجمر كم زغل تسبيت يقبرلو سلازي ابزا فيديو زيا بستفلالي كيلاتات زمص حبريت هنرينا قال كابتي نابت تحستمتاونا ابزق وانزي ازارب خوين زلو فايرال خوين زلو ملخت نري تمالون رينا نيرنا ازتري وزلهم نتمرحنا يقابون زنبرة ودو أبغزوز ترغبه بليونس جنزب كم تري وزن لهم أبورساتات تعشيقو إز جنزب زدما تعشيقو خيدو نا فرنسا خيدو قاليو سنعي لغنا قراكم انت عينت فيلمي سرح كم زلاب أفريقيا سبنا جيرك كمان نخط أمنو زشجر مخانو كتريهم إزد رايك يكونه حج دما أبز قربا حداش فيديو تيالا I'm not sure حكد منستر فاينانس نيتهاجر جنزب حيزو كوت ترخيبو يبحالالو كشا جنزب حيزو كوت دما ترخيبي يبحالالو حكنتو سنيه كرغاغت يجن again اب كمز عينت منقسقاس زحاسكا حسكا مهدامي زلو تكونتات يبحالالو سو تهاجر حوس رقات وريد ولو بزوانزي يقداس صبو غيرنا كنرينا سو غزي خيوزلكم ازي تبورسا كفت رايومو دايركت انت عين الزمتا حزب افريقيا بخمي زمات كم زلو جنزب دول كدانا بورصة خوين خيدن برودي كنز جنزب داب كشة بورصة عشيكات خيرها it's crazy زين رياضة لنا جزية again it is what it is كم زلورينا زب أفريقيا دما نزنا جرز السلسلة نهالكاز تريوزا لهم باطيرات زملاء كشة وبورصة دما نريلنا هجي إذا كنا تعتزي بدك حجرن بتوم كندي نتقداي كفلت زخولو سبات كزن تخلو كنسمعنا بليز لايك جبرنا زي channel دما support جبرنا هاتكم support بتاعمي زجدس نابلكم جمرينا let's go.
Country of Gabon, where military leaders seized power on Wednesday from President Ali Bongo, whose family had ruled the oil-rich former French colony for more than 50 years. The coup occurred shortly after Bongo had been named the winner of Saturday's contested election. The military junta has announced General Brice Oligui Nguema would serve as transitional leader.
All of the commanders-in-chief and chiefs of staff, as well as the generals in the second section of the Gabonese Republic, were present for the meeting. General Brice Oligui Nguema was unanimously appointed chairman of the Committee for the Transition and Restoration of Institutions, president of the transition.
Bongo remains.
سكم رياضة لنا توم مراحتي تي تجبري الواوي كاملاي نايت منجسي بحدا كفالنا سراوي ديكونه ترقى بمولو تسراوي أفسفل علي إزد ماي نفسح تجارات دحيرنا هنرينا انتاي تساقامي فتر كم زلو سلازي اتسراوي كبرما تهزبي بحدا خوينهم اليوم ملو نزلت مراحيو انتاي يلو أبتبو داتا مسات حزز تزارب اسمعوه.
Under house arrest. He pleaded for help in a video that aired Wednesday.
I'm Ali Bongo, Ondimba, president of Gabon, and I'm to send a message to all the friends that we have all over the world to tell them to make noise for the people here have arrested me and my family. My son is somewhere, my wife is in another place, and I'm at the residence. Right now, I'm in the residence and nothing is happening. I don't know what's going on. So I'm calling you to make noise, really.
Ali Bongo and his family have long been accused of enriching themselves.
أنا أبزي أتيوم نلو سلزي فتوت أنا علي بانغو استبهالكو بريزيدنت ناي غابوني سلزي أبزي تجوي أبجزات عتيلوه ودي أبكالي سبيتي أبكالي سلزي كل غمتهم فتوتين نفرنسا رايقونا هيكون نقولهم تم فتوتي بزعبازو كنا تعطي حبيركم أنت إذا كهزلو زخون سلدي فلزلوه حاجزكم يدللو خويز بلزلو نهز بخاخت حجز أنت زي كيل كات بحنقوه أنت كجاتم كم زغل نريال لنا مالتيو تحن هجنا بتفردي كركياتنا خلنا ደቂ ሓደ ካብቶም ኣብ ስደት ዝነብሩ ወዲ ሃገር ካልእ ድማ ኤክስፐርት ናይዚ ሪጅን ሰፊሕ ዝኾነ ሓበሬታ ኣብ ጋቦን ጥራይ ዘይኮነስ ብደረጃ ኣፍሪቃ ዝካየድ ዘሎ ክነግሩና እዮም
themselves at the expense of the country. The ousted president's father, Omar Bongo, ruled Gabon from 1967 to his death in 2009, when Ali Bongo was elected to his first term. In 2007, a probe by French police revealed the Bongo family had 39 properties in France and 70 bank accounts. Both Omar and Ali Bongo were close allies to France and
እንታይ ዝገብልተን እዩ እዚ ኣቦኡ ንዳርጋ ዝበፅሕ ዕድሚኡ መራሒ ናይቲ ሃገር ኮይኑ ነይሩ ን40 ዓመት ኣመሓዲርዋ ንሱ ምስ በተ ናብ ወዱ ኣስጊርዋ ሃገር ናይ ኣቦይ ዝብላ ነይሩ ይብሉ እዚ ሕጂ ዘሎ ፕሬዚደንት ማለት እዩ ንሱ ድማ ልዕሊ 30 ገዛውቲ ኣብ ፈረንሳ ኣለዎም ልዕሊ 30 ከምኡ ድማ ልዕሊ 70 ባንክ ኣካውንት ኣለዎም ኣብ 70 ባንክ ገንዘብ ኣለዎም ስለዚ ሃብቲ እዛ ሃገር እዚኣ ፍሉይ ሃብቲ ዘለዋ ኣዝዩ ውሑድ ህዝቢ ዘለዋ እዮም ነዚ ውሑድ ህዝቢ ከማን ክጠቕማ ይከኣሉ Let's listen now.
In the United States, Ali Bongo met with President Biden at the White House last year. The coup in Gabon comes just weeks after
ትሪወለهم ምስ ባይደን ምስ ማክሮን ምስ ካልኦት መራሕቲ ናይ ምዕራባዊ ዓለም ያ ዲሞክራቲክ ሃገር እዩ ገንዘብ ተለካ ገንዘብ ትቦም ትኾንካ ንረብሖም ተብሕዝቲ ኮይንካ ዲክታተር ኢኻ ከምዚ ኢኻ ንኽንዲዛ ኣገልጊልካ ኣቦኻ ከምዚዩ ስለምንታይ ከምዘይ ትገብር ዝበሃል ነገር የለን ረብሓናቶም ትሕሉ እንድሕር ኮይንካ እዚኣ ክትርዳእኩም ዘለዋ ኣፍሪካውያን ዲሞክራሲ ኣይምልከተናን ወይ ኣይግባኣናን ኣይኮነን ምዕራባውያን ዓለም ዲሞክራሲ ኣብ ኣፍሪቃ ክዛረቡ ከለዉ ግን ነቲ ህዝቢ ከምዘይኮነ ክበርሃልኩም ክኽእል ኣለዎ ንረብሖም ንዘገልግሉ ሰባት ዋላ 40 ዓመት ነቡን 40 ዓመት ኣገልጊሎሞ እዚ ድማ ልዕሊ 15 ዓመት ገይሩሉ ኣብ ስልጣን ስለዚ እዚ እቲ ዲሞክራሲ ኢሎም ዝምህሩና ዘለዎ ክርዳእኩም ዘለዎ በዓል ባይደን ንካልኦት ክፀርፉ እናባዕሉ ኣብቲ ብልሽውና ዘለዎም ንህዝቦም ዘገልግሉ መራሕቲ ግን ኣብ ኦፊሶም ብፍሉይ ዓዲሞም ንሳቶም ክሳሉን ክዛረቡን ፀገም የብሎምን
after a military coup in Niger, another former French colony. In recent years, there have also been coups in Mali, Guinea, Burkina Faso, and Chad. On Wednesday, the United Nations and the African Union condemned the coup.
We're joined now by two guests. Joining us from France is Thomas Deltombe. He's a French journalist and essayist. He edited a book titled A History of Franc-Afrique, the Empire That Does Not Want to Die. That's the title translated from French. And New York, Daniel Mangara joins us, professor of French and Francophone Studies in the Department of World Languages and Cultures at Montclair State University. He's the author of Gabon in Danger, the title translated from the French. In 1998, Mangara created the exiled opposition movement Bongo Must Leave, which he continues to lead. We welcome you both to Democracy Now! Danielle, Mangara, we thank you so much for being with us.
ክልተ ዓበይቲ ክኢላታት ናይዚ ዓውዲ እዚ ሓደ ካብ ፈረንሳ ሓደ ካብ ኣሜሪካ እዩ ክልቲኣቶም ሓደ እቲ መጀመርያ እቲ ግዝኣት ክመውዝ ዘይደልወይ ንኣፍሪቃ ክገድፋ ዘይደሊ ዝዓይነቱ መፅሓፍ ፀሓፈይ ብዛዕባ ፈረንሳ ይዛረብ ዘሎ እቲ ካልእ ድማ ከምኡ ሕጂ ንስማዓዮም ብጣዕሚ ኢንሳይትፉል ዝኾነ ሓበሬታ ክቡናዮም ንጋቦን ጥራይ ዘይኮነስ ብሓፈሻ ብዛዕባ እቲ ሪጅን
We're going to begin with you. Can you explain what has just taken place in your country?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. Now, I think that I heard in your segments that the international community was condemning what was going on in Gabon, especially the UN and the African Union. I'm actually surprised because I believe these are the types of coups that actually must be supported because they're undoing what I might call the rape of a nation. Gabon has been ruled for 56 years by the same family and the same regime. I don't know if people can imagine the scope of what we're talking about here. Omar Bongo came to power in 1967. He ruled for 42 years. And when he died in 2009, his son took over and has now ruled for 14 years. What that means is that Gabon...
እንታይ ይብላ ኣሎ መሲልኩም እዚ ዕልዋ መንግስቲ ምስተኣወጀ ተቐላጢፎም ዩኤን ይኹን ከምኡ ድማ ሕብረት ኣፍሪካ ነቲ ዝተገበረ ምግምጣል ወይ ከዓ ዕልዋ ክኹንኑን እገዳ ክገብሩ ነቲ ሃገር ድማ ካብ ኣፍሪካ ሕብረት ነቲ ሜምበርሽፕ ናታ ክስዕቦን እዮም ዝረኣዩ ስለምንታይ እዮም ከምኡ ዝገብሩ ኦፍኮርስ መብዛሕትኦም ሃገራት ኣፍሪካ ዲክታተራትን ከምኡ ዓይነት ንህዝቦምን መሰል ናይ ህዝቦምን ፀቂጦም ስለዝኾኑ ፀቂጦም ዝኸዱ ስለዝኾኑ ፅባሕ ንጎናቦም ክትመፅእ ስለትኽእል ስለዚ እቲ ኩነታት ክንሪኦ ከለና ግን ሕብረት ኣፍሪቃ ይኹን ምዕራባዊ ዓለም ን40 ዓመት ሓደ ሰብ ድሕሪኡ ድማ ን42 ዓመት ኣቡ ድሕሪኡ ድማ ን14 ዓመት ሕጂ ድማ ተወሳኺ 7 ዓመት እዩ ምርጫ ኣበላሽ ይወሲድ ነይሩ ስለዚ 21 ዓመት ከም ሓድር ክእል ነይሩ ነዚ ዝኾነ ይኹን ዝዛረብ ኣካል ዘይምህላው እዩ ዝብል ዘሎ
is today one of only two republics, and I mean non-monarchical republics, to have been ruled for 56 years by the same family and the same regime. And for Americans who are listening here today, 56 years is equal to 9 American presidents under Omar Bongo from 1963, Lyndon Johnson, to Barack Obama. And so the Bongo family has ruled without regard for democracy. All the elections in Gabon have been stolen.
እንታይ ይብላ ኣሎ ብኻላ ዘራርባ ኣሜሪካ ንዲሞክራሲ ትድግፍ እያ ክንብል ከለና ኣብ ጋቦን ኣሜሪካ 9 ፕሬዚደንታት ካብ 67 ክሳብ 2009 ኣቢሉ 9 ፕሬዚደንታት ካብዚኣቶም ድማ 8 ዓመት ዝገበሩ መራሕቲ ዘለዎ ማለት እዩ ከክልተ ተርም ዘገልገሉ 9 ፕሬዚደንታት ክኾኑ ከለዉ ኣብ ጋቦን ግን ምርጫ እናገበሩ ሓደ ሰብ ነይሩ ሕጂ ድማ ወዱ ማለት እዩ ስለዚ እቲ ዲሞክራሲ ዶ ንኹሉ ኢና ንኽበሃል እዩ ዝተገለ ዝበሃል ከምዘይሰርሕ ንረብሓኻ ክሳብ ዝኾነ ንዝኾነ ፀቂጦም ክኸዱ ምዝኾነ ክሰርዑ ረይዲ ምዃኖም ኣንፃር ረብሖም እንተኮይኑ እዩ ዲክታቶር ዶ ንጉስ ዶ ዝብል ዘረባ ዝመፅእ እዚ ዲክታቶራት ንምድጋፍ ኣይኮነን ዕላማ እንታይ እዩ ግን ምዕራባዊ ዓለም ንረብሑ እዩ ዘገድሶ ስለዚ ናትካ ጉዳይ ክትገብር ኣለካ ከም ህዝቢ እዚኣ ክትርዳእኩም ዘለዋ
And I think that the coup is actually a restitutive coup in a sense that it's actually restituting to the Gabonese nation a voice that will allow them now perhaps through dialogue to rebuild after 56 years of what I might call a disaster. And so I tend to believe that we should support the coup leaders in Gabon. This is a type of coup that we should support because it is a result of, it is in fact a reaction to the fact that once more, Ali Bongo, the Bongo family, tried to steal an election. And for once in Gabonese history, well, the military has stepped in and have now allowed for the possibility of democratic change in Gabon if we're able to negotiate.
ታይብላሎ ከም ንሪኦ ዘለና ንመጀመርያ እዩ ሃገር ናጽነቱ ክረክብ ዕድል ረኺቡ ዘሎ ስለዚ እዚ ሕጂ ኣጋጢሙ ዘሎ መፈንቅላ መንግስቲ ዘይኮነ ምግልጋል ናይ ሓደ ንነዊሕ ዓመታት ንህዝቢ መዝሚዙ ብሕማቕ ጨቁኑ ሒዙ ዝነበረ ተኣልዩ ህዝቢ ንመጀመርያ ግዜ ራህዋ ክረኽበሉ ዝኽእል ኣፍ ደገ እዩ ዝመስል ስለዚ ነዚ ክትኩንኖ ዘይኮንካ ክትድግፎን ከተተባብዖን ጥራይ ምትብባዕ እኳ ክብል ኣይክልኒ ምስ ኣጋጠመ ግን ኣክንዲ ምኹናንን ነቲ ነገር ንምብኣስን እቲ ሃገር ናብ ዕግርግር ከም ተኣቱ ምግባር ስቕ ኢልካን እግርኻን ኣኪብካ ምህላው ዝበለፀ እዩ ምክንያቱ እቶም ህዝቢ ጉዳዮም ባዕሎም ክፈትሑ ክትገድፎም ኣለካ ምትእትታዊ ምግዳፍ ምኹናንን ምስትን ገዲፍካ እቶም ህዝቢ ፅቡቅ ዕድል ይምነየልኩም ኣጆኹም ምባል እዩ ዘድልዮም ነይሩ እናበለ ይገልፅ ኣሎ እዚ ድማ እዩ ዘድልየና ንዓና
A peaceful resolution to the crisis.
Well, Daniel Mangera, you've said that the coup should be supported by the international community, and we've seen some footage of people in Libreville, the capital, celebrating the coup. But if you could explain, who is behind the coup? What kind of relationship did the Gabonese military have with Bongo? And the fact that there was already an attempted coup in 2019, what happened then?
Well, we know that there's been general discontent in Gabon, by the Bongo family. Now, Commander Brice Oligui Nguema, who took over as interim president now, certainly is part of what we call the presidential guard. Traditionally, this is the guard that has been protective of the president. That's like in Gabon, at least historically, that's been more like.
ሰንታይላቶ ፀኒሓ እዚ ኩነታት እዚ ካበይ ተበጊሱ ሕጂ ቅድሚ ኣብ 2019 ኣቢሉን ሓደ ዕልዋ ተፈቲኑ ነይሩ እዩ ካብኡ ዝበገስ እዩ እንታይ እዩ ናብዚ ዘብፅሕ ዘሎ ኩነታት ኢላ ምስ ሓተተቶ እንታይ ይብላ ኣሎ መጀመርያ ኣብ ጋቦን ካብቲ ዝነበረ መርሕነት ዘይዕጋበትን ዘይሓጎስን ካብ ነዊሕ እዋን ዝፀንሐ በቲ ዝነበረ ናይ ባንጎ ፋሚሊ ምሕደራ ማለት እዩ ስለዚ ኣብ 2019 ሓደ ካብቶም ሕጂ ገይሮም ዘለዉ ኣካል ናቶም ዝነበረ ዕልዋ መንግስቲ ፈቲኑ ነይሩ ኣይሰለጦ ነይሩ ኣብ ዘለንቀነ ድሕሪ ዕልዋ እውን ካብ እስር ቤት ኣውፅኦም ኣለዉ እዚ ሕጂ መራሒ ኮይኑ ዘለውን ኢድ ከም ዝነበሩ ኣብቲ ዕልዋ ይጥርጠር እዩ ግን ኣካል ናይቲ ፕሬዚደንት ዝነበረ እዩ ሕጂ ስምዕዎ እቲ ኩነታት
A personal guard to protect a dictator. So the regular army in Gabon has no power, no armament that would actually allow it to serve, as a Republican army. And in this sense, the guard of Bongo has been usually perceived as complicit, protective of the regime. And so even, Commander Oligui himself, has been accused by the Gabonese people of having been behind some of the repressions, that have gone on, over the Bongo regime. But today, we do believe that, despite all that, their ability to...
እዚኦም ወታደራውያን ሓይልታት ብሓፈሻ እቲ ፕሬሲደንሻል ጋርድ ዝበሃል ነቲ መራሒ ናይቲ ሃገር ዝከላኸል እዩ ሓይሉም እቲ ዘለዎ ስልጣንን ሓይልን ድማ ልዕለቲ ወታደራዊ ሓይሊ ናይቲ ሃገር እዩ ስለዚ ዳርጋ እዞም ሕጂ ነዚ መንግስቲ ኣልዮሞ ዘለዉ ነዚ መራሒ ኣልዮሞ ዘለዉ ዝበሃሉ ዘለዉ ቀንዲ ኢዱን መሳርሕቱን ዝነበሩ እዮም ኣብ ገለገለ ቀደም ትጭቆነ ናይቲ ህዝቢ እውን ዝፍለጡን ዝኽሰሱን ዝሕመዩን ዝነበሩ እዮም ይብላ ኣሎ ሕጂ ግን ስጉምቲ ቀይሮም ነቲ መራሒ ስድሩን ኣልዮም ናብ ሕጊ እውን ክቐርቡ እዮም ኢሎሞም ኣለዉ ንዓማ ደስኪሎም ነቲ ስልጣን ብሰላማዊ መንገዲ ብደረጃ ኣፍሪቃ እዚ ሃገር እዚ ሃብታም እያ ቁጠባናታ ዝሓሸ እዩ ካብ ኣፍሪቃ ምክንያቱ أزي بزح زلوا هابتيو أنت هابتناتا كمي كم سرق زلوا سنة إلى خنا جروكمي أزي دما نفرنسا كتسولو غيروام زلوا بزوان زي because زي هاجر زي قداميتي ما أدناتهم يعني را.
Now question the Bongo regime themselves and to decide to take over opens up new possibilities for Gabon. Now the reaction of the people has been that in general positive because they're very happy that for once the Bongo family has been at least disabled to the point of opening up the possibility of perhaps later on democracy for Gabon. And I would say that if we have to lead to a simple conclusion, we do have to believe that this is a rare opportunity for the Gabonese people to engage in national dialogue that will allow for perhaps in 2 years after the transition to go into democratic rule. And that's why I think that the international community must look at this as an opportunity for Gabon to actually enter a new era of democratic change.
I'd like to bring in Thomas Deltom into the conversation. Your book.
انتايلو بحثيرو إذا كنا تعتزي نجابون حدا بلوز عدل ناب ديمقراطية نخدمت كبس حاز غليو international community دما نزياتهم كخننن نزنا جرزك أنقصن كفتن دايكونه كدقف يزقبو باستقالة إيدو حسيبو كحجزوهم يزقبا يبلالو of course كحجزوهم يكونون ويكحجزوا يكونون فرنسا تمي جيرا ربحاته وحسين بر نزب جابون زملكتهم يكونون ويزقدسهم يكونون زقدسهم نيرن تزخون زخول لهابت زقيقون كوز دخلوا نتهزبي قال نجار مقبرولو كساب حجي 30% نايت هاجر أبديق زبالة دخلنا زنبر هزب زلوا هاجرنا 3 مليون هزب زلوا زيت عدنس أقاتات زتوهابا قال كابتن عبيتي أفرايت ناينا داد دمايا زهاجر زيا.
The book you edited is titled A History of France Afrique, the Empire That Does Not Want to Die. So, Thomas, if you could respond to what Daniel Mangera has said, in particular about the military in Gabon and the relationship of its military to France. France has reportedly a series of agreements with the militaries of many of its former colonies. It's been over 60 years since most of France's African colonies have gained independence, most of which were in 1960, including Gabon. But since then, France has intervened militarily more than 50 times on the continent. So if you could begin first by just talking about the relationship between
انتهت بلولا زي فرنسا كالوت هاجراتنا أوروبا يكون كالوت علاماتنا أفريقيا يجزوان يروميم دحرت مجزاتكن نيو كولونياليزم ويكاب بيحبوا آتيوم قلمله دليتاتهم من أجندوم يسالت اللويم ناي فرنسا جن ولا قوت مجزاتا قارجين تبلت حدا بوعل كم زي قد فتهم نجيره كلا يدما لعل 4 جزء وتهدراو متتتاو أبزين هاجرات جيراز الله هاجريا سلزي انتايتي ناي فرنسا نجر نزن هاجرات زين ناس أخذ فن زي تغل زين فتى ترى حتى حتى لا أزيا قداس متحف صحفي بزعباز قدايزي.
The military and France, the Gabonese military in France.
Yes, thank you very much for having me on your show. I think it's very important to go back and to know history to understand what's happening right now in Gabon in particular, but in French-speaking Africa in general. I think it's important to know the history of what we call this France Afrique. In one word, this term, one word, sums up the extremely close relationship, the fusional relationship that France managed to maintain with its former colony in Africa. Despite or thanks to the fake independence it granted to its former colonies in 1960. And Gabon is the extreme example of these fake independence. You might you know that the first head of state of Gabon was not Omar Bongo but Léon Mba. Léon Mba was a guy who was nominated by the French and who refused independence. He didn't want to have his country independent. It's the French who forced him to accept independence. And they said to him explicitly, "Don't worry, it's not a true independence. We'll give you independence, but at the same time you will have to sign what we call cooperation agreements. So in fact we give you."
So انتهي بلالو إذا قداي دي بحفش هذه فرانس أفريق زبحال قداي نخردعنا ويزحجز خمود زلو كردعنا انتقينو التاريخ كن ملاس كن كلالنا فرنسا نتن هاجرات كتقطفن كلا كم سن كالوت هاجرات ناس نتن هباتن كبحال يكلني بلالو مغنياتو أزي فلويز خونة زمدناتات كله بقى فرنسا سي كابرحو قزورن كم تخل جيرا ناس نتن هباتن عندنا يزخون دما تزتحلال خو قداي دما إذا حجي الوا من قستغير لازل غابون يلو اب غابون نتقدم يمرحناتهم ايدلن يمرح فناصنت ايدلن يمسبلهم بحيل يوم كدنا صحت كوني خايلهم جن كل نحنا هنا خنا محضرو قد يبلكان كل تنجر زخون بعلنا الجبريل يلوم يمسري دم يبلالو نتي قد مز بانغو فاميلي زنبر مراح مالتي سلازي اتكونتات ازيز تحلال خيو اتجيم زعوت وزلو ترى سبك سمع خلو نزي قداي تنجر كأنه أنا زغقات ما يكل كم يجرون كم نزح الرأي بلوم يكون كتلو كريكم يتنهله أجيكن سمعوه.
independence, freedom with the left hand, but we're taking it back with the right hand with these cooperations.
ናጽነትና ብጸጋም ወገን ብጸጋማይ ኢድና ናጽነት ንበኩም ኣለና ብየማንና ግን ነቲ ናጽነትኩም ኣብ ጅባና ክንእትዎ ኢና እዚኣ ታውዕል ነይራ ይብሎም ኣሎ ናጽነት ሽማ ውሰዱ እቲ ናጽነት ዝበሃል ግን የብልኩምን እዮም ኢሎሞም ይብላ ኣሎ
agreements. And these cooperation agreements are at the heart of what we see today. These cooperation agreements allowed France to maintain its military apparatus in their former colonies, to maintain the colonial monetary system beyond the independence, and to intervene military wherever it pleased. And there had been a first coup in Gabon in 1964, and the French intervened militarily to put this guy Léonbard, back on his presidential chair, and then they immediately began to prepare the accession to power of his vice president Albert Bongo at this time, the future Omar Bongo, who was installed in 1967. And the presidential guard itself was trained and formed by the French militaries back in the 1960s. So the independence of Gabon has never been real. And we have to bear that in mind, otherwise we can't understand what's happening right now.
And just to elaborate further on...
So انتهي بلا له بقلل زبالك نزارب تحرقينا كل تي ولا بشين ساعتين سوسان أربعة الوات فتينين يريو فرنسا كان متيا نتزنا برا مراحي أبسلطان مليسا إذا presidential guard نت president إذا كلا سراويت فرنسا تمل ميلو زمت سراويت نيرو سلزنا نت president حلوة أبسلطان شو عتندما نتي مقتلنا نت president شو زنا برا إذا بانغ وزبال نوع أبسلطانيتيوم كل تخمت زخل الدقاقيسم وتهدراوي معسكر اللوماو سلازي ننوع عمت زي هاجر زي زخون يكون سأقام يبلع نزي فاميلي كم دليت وناشته على سلاسة جزاوتي كمون زي تعدنا جنزب نا فرنسا نابجلن نابتني كم نجوس ينبرنيرم سبب الساعات زي سلازي زي تمسرت ناتو أبزب حزلو يبلعنا له نسمع حج.
On that term that's in your title, France-Afrique, that is a term. It also, freak means sort of money. And so it's like France's piggy bank, that's what Africa is. Is that fair to say? In addition to being one word, France is Africa, said here now with irony.
Yeah, this France-Afrique was permitted, had the goal to secure access to strategic raw materials, oil, of course, gas, uranium, manganese, gold, etc., etc. So France could maintain its grip on its former colonies and Gabon in particular, and because the Gabonese elite became very, very rich thanks to that France-African system, it could send back money to the ex-metropole France and to secretly finance the political scene, people from the left and people from the right, and try to influence the political life in France. And Omar Bongo was like very, very good at this game. And one day on the French radio, he said, France can't do anything, can't do harm to me because I know so many secrets. And among these secrets was the question of the financing of the French political scene.
Daniel Mangera, if you...
So انتهي بلا له this is very, very delicate. بحفشة أتكون تات كتري خلقها أتناي فرنسا أفريقيا بلخلو فرنسا بزي أفريقيا خد كونها يتخلني هون كسمع غليو سلازي فرنسا مالت أفريقيا مالتها اتكا بأفريقيا زمت أجاتات إيون فرنسا كما هاجر سيفيلايزد نخد كون غير وازلو مغنياتو قال يدار قاب تروح يتروح بخنريه ناسنه لنا تي أبعداق عالم زي اللي بومن ترد ما فرنسا بعالم ما بالرابعيتي دي حمشيتي ناي ورك ريزيرف زلوايا تزعبي ناي وركي مخزن زلوايا ناي حنتو وانتخون عيلا ناي ورك زي بالله هاجر كل زي وركي فرنسا تخزينه زلوا كابي متي كاب أفريقيا يمتي يورانيوم ناي انرجي تزعبي اندستري زلوميم كابي متي عدنا كاب أفريقيا سلازي نزي كما وتقول مخانم in fact نزي حجي زلوا علي بانغوز بحال عمر أبو قدام مالتي كاب محر جنزب بزحي أبوليتيكا ناي فرنساون متتاوي قبر نيرو سلازي أبت بوليتيكا ناتهم من يخمت سلطانون ترى نيرو حيل نيرو نفرنسا دما نسخاتكم ترى يكونس أنا كجزاكم خليلو زفكر زنا بريجن of course ولا حنت قبر كم زي كلجن نفلت نكلال لنا كجبر زغل تخوينه أنت زغل لير نهزب مجبره الجناب كلار سايكنا نيشتك نسمعهم.
Could talk about respond to what Thomas said, in particular the economic conditions in Gabon, the fact that the country is extremely rich in natural resources and is one of Africa's richest countries on a per capita basis, but most of the population is extremely poor. So if you could talk about this fact, the Bongo family enriching itself along with other members of the elite, and the concept of bien mal acquis. What exactly does that mean, and how does it apply in this case?
Yes. So what we're talking really about here is the pillaging of the Gabonese economy by the Bongo family. There was a decade ago, a documentary that was published by France 2, which is a French one of the French TV stations, that published a report that under ELF Gabon, which was this French company exploiting Gabonese oil, the Bongo family reserved itself 18% of Gabonese income. Compare that to what they allocated to the Gabonese nation itself, which was just 25%. So the Bongo family took 18% and giving to Gabon only 25% of Gabonese oil income under ELF. And so that gives you, the magnitude of what we're talking about. I do want to go back a little bit, and I'll come back to the economic.
እንታይ ብላ ኣሎ እቲ ኩነታት ጋቦን እቲ መራሕያት ዝነበረ ዝምድና ዝነበረ ምስ ፈረንሳ ምስቶም ናይ ፈረንሳ ዘውፁ ትካላት ሓደ ዶኩመንተሪ ፈረንሳ ዝተገበረ ኣብ ዝሓለፈ እዋን እንታይ ርኢልዎም ካብቲ ኩሉ ኣታዊ ናይቲ ሃገር እዚ ባንጎ ፋሚሊ ዝበሃል 18% ናብ ጅቦኦም ከም ዝኣቱ 25% ግን ነታ ሃገር ስለዚ ማዕረታ ሃገር ኣብ ጅቡኡ ዝኣቱ ገንዘብ ከም ዝነበሮ እቲ ዝተረፈ ሙሉ ድማ ንፈረንሳን ነተን ካምፓኒታትን ማለት እዩ ስለዚ እዚኦም ፋሚሊ እዚኣቶም ዳርጋ ዝለዓለ ደረጃ ናይ ብልሽውናን ስርቅን ክንብል ንኽእል ኢና
elements in a moment, but I want to go back to the idea of the France-Afrique, because when we to understand actually why the Gabonese are very unhappy with the way the Bongos manage the economy, we have to go back to that France-Afrique notion and understand that General de Gaulle, with Jacques Foccart, had actually arranged for Omar Bongo to come to power in 1967 because Léon was sick in France at the time, where he actually died. But before he died, they organized an election in Gabon after modifying the Gabonese constitution to make it look like the American style of constitution, where you have a vice president who would automatically succeed the president upon the president's death. And that's what happened. So Bongo came to power based on an arrangement that France actually put together to ensure that as soon as President Mba died, Omar Bongo would succeed him. And so that relationship had been ongoing forever, to the point when the Gabonese, when they look at their country, and it is indeed today, one of the two highest per capita incomes in Africa, Equatorial Guinea and Gabon actually have the highest per capita income in continental Africa today. And so the Bongo family have basically, through corrupt means, ransacked the Gabonese economy to the point that the Gabonese are not seeing really where that money is going. Recently, in fact, during the coup leaders actually arrested some of the members of the Bongo government. And in fact, we were surprised to find that in their own houses, they were keeping amounts such as like $7 million, the equivalent of $7 million in their houses. That gives you the magnitude of the corruption in Gabon.
So, እንታይ ብላ ኣሎ ብሕፅር ዝበለ እቲ ስርቂ ኣብዚ ሃገር እዚ ወይዞም መርሕነት እዚኣቶም ፈረንሳ ዝሃንደሰቶ መጀመርያ እቲ ዑመር ባንጎ ናብ ስልጣን ክመፅእ ምክትል ፕሬዚደንት ኮይኑ ናብ ስልጣን በፅሑ ስለዚ ፈረንሳ ብቀደሙ ዲዛይን ገይራ ናብ ምፅያቶ እቲ ዝግበር ዝነበረ ዝምታ ናይ ተዓዲ ድማ ፍልይ ዝበለ ደረጃ እዩ ነይሩ ሕጂ ክልተ ነገር ከሪአኩም እየ ሓንቲ ፕሮፌሰር ሉሙምባ ኣብዚ እዋን እዚ ንፈረንሳ ተሪር መልእክቲ ሰዲድሉ ሓፃር መልእክቲ ክንሰምዓ ኢና ድሕሪኡ ፈረንሳ ከመይ ጌራ ትሰርቃላ ከመይ ነይርቱ ኩነታት ብፅቡቅ ክገርመኩም ክንሪያ ኢና ሕጂ ንቐፅል ኣብዚኣ ንእሽተይ ከሪአኩም እየ ናብቲ ሓንቲ ከይሰገርኩ ከሎ let's listen to Professor Lumumba.
But I'll say it. For France, it's unfair to say, but I'll say it. For France, the chicken are coming home to roost. They are now being reminded of what they did to Guinea in 1958. They are being reminded of what they did to Algeria. They are being reminded of what they did in Indonesia and other parts of the world. I hope that this very painful lesson is going to send a clear message to the French administration that the time is now to accept and acknowledge that the injustices that are inbuilt in the French system will be dealt with and dealt with satisfactorily.
So, እንታይ ብሎም ፀኒሑ እዚ ጉዳይ እዚ ንነዊሕ ፈረንሳ ትገብርዎ ዝነበርኩም ትሰርቅዎ ዝነበርኩም ተሓሲቦ ዝነበርኩም ጉዳይ ሰዓቱን ግዜውን ከም ዝኣኸለ ክትፈልጡ ክትክልለኩም ኣይሆፕ ካብዚ ተማሂርኩም ድማ እቲ ተሪፉ ዘሎ ፅቡቅ ጌርኩም ክሰርሑ እዚ ኸማን እንታይ ገይሮም ማመን ፈረንሳ ወላ ሓንቲ ኮይ ገበርዋ ዝሕዝን ክፋሉ ከም ዓብ ነገር እዩ ዝቁፀር ዘሎ ወላ ሓንቲ ኮይ ንፈረንሳ ዘይገበሮ እንታይ እዮም ዝገብሩ ዘለዉ ፀጋታት ናይ ሃገሮም በዓልና ከነመሓድሮ ኢና እዚ ምባል ከም ዝዓበየ ሓጢኣት ኣብ ዓለም እዩ ናነ ሃገረይ ባዕለይ ከም ሓድረይ ምባል እቲ ዝዓበየ ሓጢኣት ኣብዚ እዋን እዚ ከም ንሪኦ ዘለና ንስማዕ ሕጂ
The coup happened in Gabon, of all places in Gabon, and everyone was happy. They still are. All over Africa, everyone is celebrating this one because this one is different. But not everyone is happy. France, for example, they're not happy about it. And I will tell you why. So they have condemned it alongside the UN and the African Union.
In other world news, the coup in Gabon is being condemned by the United Nations, the African Union, and France. Military leaders have appointed Army General Brice Oligui Nguema as transitional leader. Deposed President Ali Bongo is still under house arrest, and the government has been dissolved.
For the UN, they usually do that. We understand. The African Union, well, there is a club of African dictators, people like Paul Kagame, Museveni, Paul Biya, Emmerson Mnangagwa from Zimbabwe, those people. So definitely, a coup is something that threatens their own existence. So they don't like it. So they have to condemn it.
So እንታይ ንብል ኣለና ዳርጋ እዚ ኩነታት እዚ ናይ መራሕቲ ኣፍሪካ ብጣዕሚ ስጋት ፈጢሩሎም ዘሎ ብፍላይ ኣብቲ ዞባት ዘለዉ መራሕቲ ኣፍሪካ ኣብዚኣ ጥቆም ጥራይ ክልተ ኣለዉ ሓደ ካባቶም ካሜሩን ንልዕሊ 40 ዓመት ኣብ ኩርሲ ኮፍ ዝበለ ኣብዚ ዋን እዚ ድማ ዳርጋ ኣብኡ ኣሪጉ ዘሎ ሰብኣይ ማለት እዩ ኦልሬዲ ዓብ ነርቨስነስ ፈጢርዎም ኣሎ ከምኡ እውን ኣብ ሩዋንዳ ኣብ ዩጋንዳ ይብልሎ ኣብቲ ሪፖርት ማለት እዩ ሩዋንዳ ፖል ከጋማ ኣብዚ ዋን እዚ ብዙሓት ጀነራላት ፅንሒልና ክንሰምዖ ኢና ካብ ስልጣን ይዓሉ ከም ዘለዉ ኩላቶም ሰራዊቶም ኣብ ምቅያርን ወታደራዊ ሓይልታቶም ኣብ ምላይን ነቶም ከስጉና ይኽእሉ እዮም ዝበልዎም ጥርናፈ ናይ ጀነራላት ኣብ ምፅንፃልን ወፊሮም ከም ዘለዉ ኣብዚ ዋን እዚ ክንርኢ ኢና
doesn't matter. They have to condemn it. And the reason I'm saying this coup is different is because it has rattled African dictators. They are scared. Because according to the latest news, is that Rwanda, Cameroon, and Uganda have made major changes in their military top positions today in the morning. And one of the articles says that the Rwanda Defense Force released a statement disclosing Paul Kagame's approval of the retirement of 12 generals, 83 senior officers, and 6 junior officers. Additionally, 86 senior non-commissioned officers will be retired. So about 700 soldiers retired as their contract was terminated. So
ብፍላይ ኣብ ካሜሩን ኣብ ሩዋንዳ ከምኡውን ኣብ ዩጋንዳ እቶም መራሕቲ ብሲሪየስሊ ይንቀሳቀሱ ከም ዘለውን እዚ ነገር እዚ ንኸየጋጥሞም ስለዚ ኣብ ሩዋንዳ ንኣብነት ከም ኣብነት ክሳብ 1000 ዝኾኑ ኣገደሲ ኣካላት 12 ጀነራላት 83 ማዕረግ ዘለዎም ወታደራዊ ሓይልታት ካብ ውትድርና ተጣይሶም ከም ዘለዉ ከምዚ ካብቲ ውትድርና ታልዮም ከም ዘለዉ ዝኻንታይ ሓደሽ መራሕቲ ብምምፃእ ክሳብ ኦርጋናይዝ ዝኾኑ ወይ ገለመለ ዕድል ንኸይረኽቡ ከምኡውን ኣብ ኡጋንዳ ያለ ኩሉ ድማ ኣብታ ጎረቤቶም ካሜሩን ብፈረንሳ ትምዝመፅ ብዙሕ ፀጋታት ዘለዋ the same ኩነታት ናይ ፈረንሳ ዘብለን ዘሎ of course ናይ ሩዋንዳ is different because መግዛእቲ ናይ ፍራንስ ስለ ዘይኮኑ ቀንዲተን ናይ ፍራንስ ግን እዚ ዳርጋ ናባኻ ክመፅእ ከም ዝኽእል እውን ከም ቅቡል ጌርካ ክረአ ዝኽእል ኩነታት እውን በፂሑ ኣሎ ምክንያቱ ካብ ሓንቲ ናብ ሓንቲ ይኸይድ ስለ ዘሎ ብሓፈሻ ግን ንመብዛሕትኦም ዲክቴተርስ ድቃስ ዝኸልእ ኩነታት ኮይኑ ከም ዘሎ ይሕብሩ ኣለዉ ንስማዕ የዳህን
Paul Kagame has fired all his generals in the army because he fears they are planning to remove him. And in Cameroon, the story goes that Cameroon, in reaction to the spread of military coups on the African continent, have taken proactive steps by reshuffling defense portfolios. And the Cameroonian president is 91 years. This guy suffers from dementia.
መራሒ ናይ ካሜሩን ሲ ወዲ 91 ዓመት ይብሉኻ ኣለዉ ኣብ ልዕሊኡ ድማ ዲሜንሽያ ናይ ምርሳዕ ሕማም ኣለዎ ናይ ገለ ኣለዎ ስለምንታይ ኣብ ስልጣን ኣሎ ክሳብ ሕጂ እንድሕር ኢልኩን ብርግፅ ፈረንሳ ስለ ዝደልይዎ እቲ ስትራቴጂክ እቲ ቦትጥቁ ዘሎ ኩሉ ስለ ዝቆሃፀርዎ ዝኾነ ነገር ክትገብሮ ይትኽእልኒ ኢኻ ፀገምና እትኹ ሰሚዕኹም እንጂ
or dementia, right? Sometimes he even forgets where he is. He keeps asking, where am I? Who are these people? Those kind of questions. So he still wants to continue ruling until his own child, daughter or son.
The same story ኣብዚ ሕጂ ጋቦን ኣጋጢሙ ዘሎ ዕልዋ መንግስቲ እቲ ቀደም ዝነበረ መራሒ ክሳብ ዳርጋ ኣጋሞቱ እዩ ኣመሓዳር ናይቲ ሃገር ነይሩ ክሳብ ደስኪሉ ከሎ ገለመለ ስለዚ ምስ ሞተ ይወዲ ተረኪቡ እዚ ከዓ 91 ዓመት ኣበይ ከም ዘሎ ይፈልጥ ሓደ ግዜ ኣበይ ከም ዘሎ ይርስዕ እንታይ ከም ዘረብ ዘሎ ይርስዕ ናይ ምርሳዕ ሕማም ኣለዎ ብዙሕ ፀገማት ኣለዎ ግን ኣብቲ ስልጣን ክወርድ ኣይደለን እዩ ዘሎ ስለዚ እቲ ኩነታት ድማ ነዚ ይመስል ንሱ ምስ ሞተኻ ብርግፅ ወዱ ወይ ገለ ነገር ክትኮይት ስልጣን ናቱ ማለት እዩ
is of age to take over from him, definitely. But the other reason about France, why is France not happy? France has been milking Gabon for the past 100 years, taking everything from Gabon and giving nothing back. For example, Gabon is the only African or the only country in the world that sells its crude oil pegged on the dollar or the euro, but they don't get dollars or euros.
ናይ ፈረንሳ መዝመዛ ቃል በቃል ይመፀኩም ኣሎ ፈረንሳ ንጋቦን ክትከላኸለሉ ወይ ከዓ ሓንቲ ካብተን ቀንዲ ኣገዳስነት ዘለዋ ነቲ ሃገር እያ ንሱ ድማ ብዙሕ ነዳዲ ዩራኒየም ዘለዎ ጥራይ ዘይኮነ እዚ ሃገር እዚኣ ወርቂ እውን ከምኡ እቲ ሪሶርስ ናቶም ፀጋናቶም ብምንታይ እዮም ዝሸጥዎ بتناي قدم فرنسا نبعلا زيت تقاملو باطيرا فرانك زبالنا فرنسا مالتي ازي صنص دارغا جوك يكتب له تخليخه نبعلهم زي تقاملو مسيرو حويسنا لنا يلوم بعلهم كاب ورقتهم برينت غيرهم نتغنزب محتملاتهم باحتمام يبوم ازي ورقات ازي حسكا كاب زخونه هاجر كغزا يتخلنيخه فرنسا نبيرو غير كاتريها تقامل تخل سلازي ازي دارغا انتي مخلق صنصواي كتب له تخليخه بتزلو درجه ناي قطباني عالم كتري خلخه ግን فرنسا አገዳስነት አለው እዚ
but instead are paid in useless paper money manufactured in the French central bank called the CFA franc. The CFA franc is the paper currency that France or the central bank in France manufactures on behalf of 14 African countries. Gabon is one of those countries, and what they do is that
እዚ ወረቀት እዚ ባዕሎም ፕሪንቲዮም ዝገብሩ ኣብቲ ማሕተምናቶም ኣብ 14 ሃገራት ናይ ፈረንሳ ነዚ ገንዘብ እዚ እቲ ሃብትናቶም ወይ ካብቲ ስምምዕናቶም ሃብቲ ናይተን ሃገር በዚ ወረቀት እዚ ክቕመጥ ሽዑ ናብ ዩሮ ይቕይሩሎም ክጥቀምሉ ከሎ ማለት እዩ ስለዚ እቲ ዩሮ ዝበሃል ክንምንታይ እንቆልቁ ኢሉሎ እዚ ወረቀት እዚ ባዕሎም ፕሪንት ዝገብሩ ዩሮውን ብወርቂ ወይ ብገለ ዝተደገፈ ኣይኮነን ኣገ ንስም ወረቀት እዩ እዚኣቶም ካብ ከርሳ ዓዶም ዝወፀ ፀጋ ነዳድን ብወረቀት ቅይርዎ ኣለዉ እቲ ወረቀት ከ ፈረንሳ ብሳንቲም ከማናይ ትገብሮን እያ ክትሕትሞ ማሕተም ስለ ዘለዎም ጥራይ ስለዚ ክሳብ ክንዲዚ ንኽምዝምዙ ፀገም ዘይብሎም ሃገራት ኢና ንርኢ ዘለና
they peg this CFA franc that is 650 CFA franc to 1 euro, you know, and once French companies mine minerals, timber, manganese, crude oil from Gabon or from Niger, in the case of uranium, they don't pay it in euros or dollars. They pay it using this CFA franc that is made in France. So, for example, if a French company owed Gabon 1 million euros, they don't bring 1 million euros. So instead, they send 650 million CFA franc to them. So they go to the French government, get this money from the central bank in France after printing it, and then they bring it to Gabon. That's how they pay them. And you'll be shocked how much of this CFA franc is in circulation in these countries because there's no checks and balances by their governments to determine how much France actually prints. So this video where some people who are part of the celebration of the coup came upon hundreds of bags full of CFA currency in one of the homes of a government official in Gabon.
ንኣብነት እዚ ገንዘብ ዝተረኺቡ ዘሎ እዚ ገንዘብ ሕጂ ኣብ ዝተረኺቡ ዘሎ ንሪኦ ዘለና እቲ ናይ ፈረንሳ CFA ዝበሃል እንድሕሪ ኮይኑ ፈረንሳ ኣይቅበሎን እንድሕሪ ኢላቶም እቲ ወረቐት ኣብ ሸቓጥ ጥራዮም ክእትውዎ ዝኽእሉ ምክንያቱ ጥቕሚ የብሉን እዚ ወረቐት እዚ ፈረንሳ ጥራይ ቫልዩ ክትበ ትኽእል ባዕላ ስለ ትሕትሞ ዩሮ ክንበኩም ኢና እንተኢሎሞም ጥራይ እንተዘየለ ኣብ ወረቐት ክእትዎ እዮም ጥቕሚ ዘይብሉ ባጤራ እዩ እዚ ኣብ ፈረንሳ ከይድካ ኣብ ድኳን እውን ክትገዛሉ ዘይትኽእል እዩ ክገርመኩም
Did you know France makes Africa pay for its own foreign aid by manipulating the West African franc? Based on a review of public financial reports, it appears France has never actually used its own money to help Africa. I'm about to discuss one of the most elaborate financial cons since the original Ponzi scheme, and no matter how bad you think this is, don't worry, it gets worse. First, the backstory. France controls the creation of money for 14 countries in Africa, a legacy of colonialism.
So, yeah, نشتي فيديو يا نبي حكي زجرم نا أفريقيا حزين كاي تودن عندها بونزي سكيمز بحالا لهم زنا السرقة جيمز قبل أب عالم تزعبي بونزي ويكات تزعبي السرقة مثلالن فرنسا أبزنا أسرت 4 هجرات أفريقيا تجبرها بعلا زسالته بعلا زحفته بعلا برينت زجبرته جنزب أب كلا عالم تقوم زي بلو هبتناتهم بزورق جيرة بمولو منزعة بيورم بدولار شيتا هجرهم قدام عالم جيرم مالو
colonialism. We call this either the West or Central African franc, depending on the country. Every year, France prints between 20 and 40 billion euros worth of this African currency, which it uses to buy natural resources, influence African leaders, and occasionally provide some developmental aid. Pay attention. France prints the Africans' own paper currency and then exchanges the currency they just printed for physical goods and resources. You might be tempted to call this counterfeiting, but they already have a word for this.
انتهي لكم الله نتجنزب بعلم ورقات امتيهم تعبيلهم سريعهم نزو ورقه لك كم زي اب جزاها جنزب برينت يركب على الخسر حكايه مالتي سيلكا برينت يركب اب دكان كيتكا نتا دكان زنبره بمرو غزي خاين دحرخيت كان ابنت ناي دولار فيك دولار امتي خبا على الخسر حكايه قال ملك يركب اب سوبر ماركت زلو نبرت كل انت وسكيا انت اسمعك نتبع على الدكان كسع كنيقه تلك لها كم زنا جبروا 5 6 7 عامات كتشيلا مالو فرنسا سلازي نزي اخلنا يلو زتنسو زلو حزبينا نرزلنا أفكار أفريقيا ديكتاتور سالويم إزين هجرات جاتنجن ديكتاتوراتن فرنسان زجبروهم زلوا مجلس يركبوني that's why دما كل سبكنك حلو كم زلوا عشان دحرين كاسعدو كسب كندي كم زبزوخان كبل عخان دحر كم زيبلو بفتم فريهاز جابير كم زيبلو من نخد فلتي ليه غير هذا اللغة بليز نزل channel support جبروا لايك جبر وزا فيديو شير جبر واتكم ينتهلكما ناتكم ريتو ناتكم حسابات constructively ويكبهنا من قد قرفنا بالكو نايلو مارس سابز خودينا بزعبا زارستي زلو كنتات نراهو قرب لكم ንስኻትኩም ድማ ሰፖርት ምግባር ኣይትሕመቑ እናበልኩ ክሰናበተኩም እየ ፅቡቑ ቻው
ሰለስተ ነገራት ቀልጢፍና ክንዕርየን ከነስተኻኽለን ዘለና መጀመርያ ገንዘብካ ባንክ ዘሎ ንባንክን በርናዓኻ ይኮነን ዘገልግል ስለዚ ገንዘብካ ንጥቕምኻ ንክኸውን በቲ ንስኻ ትፈልጦ ብንእሽተይ ጌርካ ኣብ ስቶክ ማርኬትን ኣብ ካልእ ክሪፕቶን ኢንቨስት ክትገብሮ ፈትን ቁፅሪ 2 ጥሮታ ዝበሃል ድሕሪ ቁሩብ ግዜ ጠጠው ክብል እዩ ኣብ 20-30-40 ዘለና እቲ ጥሮታ ናይ መብዛሕትአን ሃገራት ፌል ይገብር ከም ዘሎ ኣብነት ናይ ጃፓን ፌል ገይሩ ናይ ካልኦት እውን ክስዕብ እዩ ስለዚ ብዛዕባ ቁጠባ መጻኢኻ ካብ ሎሚ በዓልኻ ዲዛይን ክትገብሮ ትክእል ኣለካ ቁፅሪ 3 ድማ ትምህርትኻ እኹል ኣይኮነን ክንምንታይ ተማሂርካ ስለዚ ዓለምና ብቁልጡፍ ትጎይ ስለ ዘላ ማዕርያ ንክትጎይ ክንመሃርን ክንነቅሕን ኣለና ነዚ ዝሕግዝ ፕሮግራም ኣለና ተጠቐሙሉ ይብለኩም ቴንክ ዩ